I was kicked out of my house on Christmas Eve by my own mother. She smiled when she did it too. Not a screaming match, not a teary meltdown, just a cold, bored wave of her hand like I was clutter. Like the extra ornaments she didn't feel like hanging that year. I stood on the porch, holding a sad little grocery bag of my stuff, half a sweater, some old slippers, my backup car keys, while the laughter from inside wrapped around me like smoke. My brother's kids squealed over their new bikes. My sister-in-law posted selfies by the tree. And my mother? She was too busy posting about family blessings on Facebook to notice the daughter she'd shoved into the snow. I wish I could say it was a surprise. It wasn't. Growing up, I was the placeholder daughter. The one who made the honor roll, brought home the groceries, remembered birthdays, paid the bills when dad's drinking got bad, but somehow, none of that ever translated into love. Not compared to my brother, Daniel. Daniel was the son we all revolved around. The prodigal son who crashed cars, skipped classes, blew through jobs like tissues and still got standing ovations for trying his best. I was the fallback, the emotional mule, the family secretary, therapist, unpaid babysitter. If Daniel needed rent money, guess who was guilt-tripped into wiring it? If mom forgot dad's meds, guess who spent her lunch breaks driving across town? If the family forgot my birthday, and they usually did, guess who was expected to laugh it off because you know how busy we are? I swallowed it. For years, I was the good sport, the reliable one, the thankless nursemaid to a family that only remembered my name when they needed something. But nothing, not even decades of swallowing my pride, prepared me for what happened when I finally did something for myself. I didn't get married young, didn't pop out kids like they wanted, didn't follow the small town script. You'll change your mind, they said, smiling tight little smiles, whenever I hinted at wanting a different life. You'll see, you're just going through a phase. Phase turned into my 30s, my 40s. No kids, no husband, just me and a modest condo and a quiet life they called sad behind my back. You're wasting your life, my mother once said when she thought I couldn't hear. But when Daniel got divorced again and moved back in with his 3 kids and no money, suddenly his mess was my fault too. If you had a family of your own, you'd understand, Mom snapped, shoving a crying toddler into my arms one Thanksgiving. I understood, all right. I understood that in this house, my worth was measured in how much I could endure without complaint. And then I did the unthinkable. I started the adoption process. Not because I needed to prove anything, not because I wanted to be a real adult by their definition, but because somewhere, deep in the rusted-over gears of my heart, I wanted something that was mine. A child who wouldn't grow up believing love was a ledger sheet, a chance to be the kind of parent I'd always needed. When I told my family it was supposed to be a celebration, hope, new beginnings. Instead, they laughed. Who's gonna give you a kid? Daniel sneered over Christmas dinner, sloshing beer onto his shirt. Mom just smiled her thin, polite smile. Adoption is complicated, honey. Maybe you should focus on helping Daniel with his kids instead. They need you more. They needed me when the rent was due, when the babysitter canceled, when Daniel's girlfriend disappeared with the last of the child support. They needed me to fix their lives while mine was treated like an afterthought. And I needed them to be proud, for once. It never came. The night I got the call, the agency saying I was approved, that I was going to be a mother, I drove straight to my parents' house. I practically floated up the steps. This was it. This was my moment. Mom barely looked up from her phone. Daniel was half asleep on the couch, the TV blaring. When I told them, the silence was deafening. Then Mom said, "Well, if you're sure you want to do that, that was it. No hugs, no congratulations, no tears of joy. Just that cold, indifferent sure, like I was announcing I was getting a tattoo they didn't like." That Christmas Eve, when Daniel's ex dropped the kids off late and chaos exploded, Mom snapped at me for making things harder by being selfish. Selfish. For daring to build my own family. For wanting a life that wasn't tethered to cleaning up Daniel's mess. When I pushed back, when I finally said, "I can't keep doing this," Mom didn't argue. She just opened the door and said, "If you can't be part of this family, don't bother coming back." So I left. No coat, no shoes. No one even looked out the window as I drove away. My heart didn't break. It calcified. And in that frozen, howling silence, one brutal truth sank in so deep it cracked bone. They never loved me. Not really. Only what I could do for them. The thing about walking away is that nobody believes you'll actually do it. At first, I think they expected me to come crawling back by New Year's, maybe with a tear-streaked apology, begging to be allowed into the chaos again. That's how it had always worked before. I played the mule, they dangled scraps of affection, and the wheel kept turning. But I didn't call, I didn't text, I didn't even like their Facebook posts. For the first time in my life, I just disappeared. At first, it was quiet, peaceful even. Like standing in a snowstorm and realizing the wind isn't fighting you anymore because you finally turned your back on it. I put my phone on silent. I deleted their birthdays from my calendar. I started leaving work on time instead of racing home to babysit Daniel's kids because no one else could. And for a few blissful weeks, it was just me and the paperwork for the adoption. Me and this new, terrifying, beautiful life growing quietly like a seed under the ice. Then the messages started. At first, it was little things. Mom tagging me in old photos, miss my baby girl, like she hadn't tossed me into the snow less than a month ago. Daniel's ex sending passive-aggressive texts asking if I could just pick the kids up from school once or twice because it's so hard being a single mom. A cousin I barely spoke to sliding into my DMs to say, "Your mom's been really upset. You should reach out. They didn't miss me. They miss what I did for them." And when the silence stretched longer, when it became clear I wasn't coming back, the mask slipped. The guilt trips came first. Family is everything. Mom texted one night at 2 a.m., like a drunk prayer. "Don't throw it away over a mistake," as if I had made the mistake. Then the anger. "You're being selfish," Daniel texted. "Mom's stressed out enough without you acting like a victim." Aunt Carol called to tell me, in that syrupy, fake sweet voice, that no family is perfect and it's time to move on. Move on? From what? From decades of being used up and tossed aside like a worn-out tool? Every time I didn't respond, the messages got nastier. My brother's girlfriend, the new one, posted a vague status about fake family members who abandon kids when they're needed most. Mom started calling my job, asking my coworkers if I was okay, spinning tales about how I was going through something and needed support. It wasn't about love, it was about control. When you're the designated scapegoat, silence isn't just inconvenient, it's rebellion. And rebellion must be crushed. I caught Daniel trying to guilt-trip mutual friends into checking on me. I found out Mom was telling the extended family that I was unstable. One of my cousins even hinted that maybe I shouldn't be allowed to adopt if I was going to isolate myself like this. They wanted me to break, to explain, to justify. I gave them nothing. Every time my phone buzzed, every time my email dinged with another little tug on the chain, I remembered standing barefoot on that icy porch on Christmas Eve, and I steeled myself harder. I started building walls, real ones. I changed my number. I made my social media private. I put passwords on everything. I filed a cease and desist letter with my adoption agency, instructing them not to release any updates to family members without my consent. And still, the tendrils kept reaching. Mom drove past my building one afternoon, slow and lingering, her car crawling like a spider over the curb. I watched from my window as she circled the block 3 times before finally slinking away. Daniel sent a bouquet to my work with a card that said, "Let's put the past behind us," as if there was ever anything but the past between us. I didn't even open the flowers. I dropped them, vase and all, into the dumpster behind the building. Somewhere around February, the rumors started. She's having a breakdown, she's broke, she's brainwashing the kid she's adopting. I learned not to care, not really. But it chipped at me in small ways, the way frost chips at stone. You don't notice at first until whole pieces start falling off. One night, I sat on my kitchen floor, eating dry cereal out of the box, just unraveling. Because even when you choose to leave, the ache still follows you. The tiny part of you that still wants to be loved, to be seen, to be wanted. I cried. Ugly, snotty, gasping sobs. And then I stopped, because my phone lit up again. Another guilt trip, another demand. And somewhere inside me, a slow, fierce anger ignited. They weren't sorry for what they did. They were sorry they couldn't use me anymore. That night, I made a promise to myself. I would not let them poison this new life I was building. Not through guilt, Not through fear, not through their endless, desperate need. I wasn't the broken one. I was the one who got away. And I wasn't done yet. You think you know how deep the rot goes. You think you've seen the worst of it. Until you find out you've only been standing in the shallow end and the real monsters are waiting just beneath your feet. It happened by accident, like all the worst things do. I was at the bank finalizing paperwork for the adoption, updating my account info, setting up a new trust for the baby, my baby, and making sure everything was in order. I was proud, honestly. No co-signers, no backup from family, just me, finally standing on my own 2 feet. The banker was nice, young, smiley, trying to make small talk as he clicked through screens. And then he frowned. You're still listed as a joint account holder on another account here. Looks like it was opened years ago. It's pretty active. I blinked. I don't have any joint accounts. He turned his monitor toward me. There it was, my name, my social security number, tied to a savings account I had no memory of opening, and a second name listed right next to mine, Daniel Whitmore. I stared at it, heart dropping straight into my shoes. The transaction history was busy. Thousands of dollars moving in and out every month. Payments to credit cards, Amazon purchases, bar tabs, rent payments. I felt sick. Can I get a printout? I asked, somehow keeping my voice steady. He nodded. I took the papers, folded them neatly, and walked out into the freezing wind. In my car, I opened them again, line after line of withdrawals. Daniel's rent, Daniel's shopping, Daniel's everything. And me? Me, the ghost account holder carrying the liability if anything went wrong. It wasn't just that he was using my name, it was that someone had helped him do it. Because you can't open a joint account without both parties present. Someone forged my signature. Someone who knew all my personal information. Someone who had easy access to my social security card, my old pay stubs, my IDs. Someone like Mom. The realization hit me so hard I had to grip the steering wheel to keep from screaming. All those years of being told I was selfish, ungrateful, difficult, all while they drained me like a bank account they didn't even bother hiding. I wanted to throw up. I wanted to smash every window in that house. Instead, I sat there, ice forming on the windshield, and I plotted. I didn't confront them right away. No. That's what they expected. They expected me to rage, to scream, to slam doors and confirm the story they were already spinning about me being unstable. I played it differently. First, I went to a lawyer, a pit bull of a woman named Marla, recommended by a coworker who had once annihilated her ex in a custody battle. Marla took one look at the paperwork and said flatly, they committed financial fraud. You can sue them into oblivion. I liked her immediately. Second, I pulled my credit reports. It was worse than I thought. Daniel had been using the fake joint account to bolster his credit, racking up debts and paying them just enough to avoid defaulting. My name was tied to 2 maxed-out credit cards I didn't even know existed. It would have destroyed my adoption chances if the agency had seen it. My entire future, hanging by a thread, because my family couldn't see me as anything but a resource to plunder. Marla drafted the paperwork. I set up new bank accounts. I froze my credit. I gathered every piece of documentation like sacred armor. And still, I stayed silent. Let them think I was weak. Let them think I was beaten. The more they underestimated me, the sweeter it would be. The final straw came in March. My adoption was finalized. My daughter was real now, warm and breathing and beautiful. A little girl with big brown eyes and a cautious, thoughtful smile. We had a small, private ceremony at the courthouse. Me, my best friend, my lawyer, yes, Marla cried, and the social worker. No family. I didn't even tell them. Not until a distant cousin, a sweet one, I actually posted congratulations after seeing my name on the public records. Cue the fireworks. Mom blew up my phone. Daniel left voicemails alternating between rage and fake cheer. Aunt Carol wrote a Facebook essay about the importance of family bonds and how forgiveness makes us stronger. And then, the cherry on top, Mom texted me, demanding photos of her new grandbaby. Not asking, demanding. Like I owed her a front row seat after she tried to steal my future out from under me. I stared at the message for a long, long time, and then I smiled because the trap was ready, and they were walking straight into it. The plan was simple. Step 1, I compiled every piece of evidence: bank statements, forged signatures, credit reports into a neat little packet. Step 2, I had Marla draft a cease and desist letter, citing financial fraud and emotional harassment. Step 3, I filed a police report. Not because I wanted to see them in handcuffs yet, but because I wanted an official record. Step 4, I waited for the next inevitable tantrum. It came 2 days later. Daniel showed up at my condo building, banging on the front door, yelling that I was ruining the family, that I was a selfish bitch, that I was stealing his kid's future. I didn't open the door. I didn't even flinch. I just sent a text to Marla, to the police, to the building manager who loved me and hated drama. Daniel got escorted off the property, publicly, loudly. The report noted attempted harassment and trespassing. Exactly what I needed. I sent copies of the reports and the cease and desist to every email address I had for them. And then I blocked them. All of them. Phone, email, social media, gone. I didn't owe them photos. I didn't owe them access to the life they tried to destroy. All they got was silence. And the slow, creeping realization that their golden child status didn't come with immunity anymore. And me? I rocked my daughter to sleep that night, her tiny hand curled against my chest, and felt something crack open inside me. Not grief, not guilt, freedom. For the first time in my life, I wasn't holding the family together with bleeding hands. I was building something else, something stronger. And they couldn't touch it, not anymore. The first real sign that things were unraveling came quietly. A notice posted to my brother's door, eviction pending, unpaid rent, no cosigner. I guess Mom thought she'd find a way to cover for him like she always did. Except I wasn't there to loan her another few $1,000s under the table. Without their scapegoat, the math didn't add up. And Daniel, for all his charm, didn't have a credit score high enough to rent a cardboard box. The gossip started in whispers. Daniel's kids bouncing from house to house. Mom downsizing into a dingy apartment near the highway. Facebook posts getting more cryptic and desperate. Bible verses about betrayal. Sad quotes about ungrateful children. I watched it all unfold from a distance, sipping coffee and rocking my daughter in the sunlight of our tiny kitchen. Safe, warm, untouchable. They cracked first. Of course they did. Mid-April, a letter arrived. Not a text, not an email. A real letter, handwritten, the kind reserved for funerals and guilt bombs. It was from Mom. It started sweet. Crooked hearts over the eyes, little doodles in the margins. Family is everything. We miss you so much. Daniel's struggling, the kids are struggling, your mother is struggling. And then the pivot, you have a responsibility as the stable one to help. That's what good daughters do. We're willing to forgive everything if you'll just come back. Forgive everything. As if I had been the one stealing. As if I was the traitor who forged signatures and wrecked credit scores. I tore the letter in half without even finishing it. Fed it to the garbage disposal. Gone. And yet, it gnawed at me. Not guilt, not longing. Fury. A deep, cold fury. They weren't sorry. They weren't even pretending to be sorry. They thought forgiveness was another transaction. Another debt I owed them. Another service to perform at the cost of my soul. I didn't plan the confrontation. Not really. It unfolded the way all their schemes had. Messy, entitled, desperate. I was at the grocery store, pushing a cart, minding my business, picking out baby formula and juice boxes. And there they were. Mom, Daniel, blocking the cereal aisle like two trolls under a bridge. "You're ignoring your family?" Daniel snapped before I could even turn away. Mom clutched at her chest dramatically. "Your poor brother's homeless. His children are suffering. And you're what, playing house with some charity case?" That did it. I put the basket down, right there, middle of the aisle, next to the Cheerios and the generic brand granola bars. "I know about the account," I said. Calm, quiet, deadly. Mom blinked. Daniel's face twisted. "I know you forged my signature," I said. "I know you ruined my credit. I know you endangered my adoption." Shoppers slowed around us, not stopping, but noticing. "Good." Daniel blustered first, of course. "You're crazy. You're making shit up. You're trying to destroy the family." Mom just stared at me like a trapped animal. "You didn't destroy me," I said, voice low and steady. "You only destroyed yourselves." I pulled a copy of the police report out of my purse. Held it out like a trophy. You want to keep pushing, I said. We can take it to court. We can go public. I have every receipt. Mom reached for the paper, frantic. I pulled it back. No more contact, I said. You call me again? You show up at my house? I file charges. You tell another lie about me. I make it public. You try to get near my daughter? I smiled. God help you. I left them standing there, silent, small, stripped of the power they thought they'd keep forever. The whole way home, my hands shook not with fear, but with the kind of rage that finally had a home. A direction, a use. They tried after that. Oh, they tried. Daniel posted a half-assed rant online about fake people and family betrayers. Mom sent long, rambling emails pretending she didn't understand what she'd done wrong. Cousins I hadn't heard from in years popped up to play mediator. I didn't respond. Not once. Not when Daniel's car got repossessed. Not when Mom's landlord sued her for damages. Not when I heard through the grapevine that Daniel lost visitation rights because he couldn't keep a stable home for his kids. The karma train wasn't just coming. It had already hit, and I wasn't even the one driving it. They were so used to me absorbing the damage for them, so used to me being the sponge that soaked up every consequence. Without me, they drowned in their own mess. And still, the world turned, quietly, beautifully. I threw my daughter a birthday party, just us and a few friends. We baked cupcakes and danced in the kitchen and painted messy handprints on the walls. No screaming matches, no snide comments, no careful walking on emotional landmines, just laughter, just peace. I posted one photo, just one. Me and my girl, faces streaked with frosting, laughing like idiots. And I made sure the privacy settings were locked tight. Friends only, no family. Let them stalk if they wanted, let them see what they lost. Because I wasn't hiding anymore. I wasn't explaining. I wasn't apologizing. I was living. They said I was cold. They said I was cruel. They said I abandoned them when they needed me most. Maybe they're right. But after a lifetime of being set on fire just to keep them warm, I finally chose to walk away from the flames. And God, the air had never tasted so sweet. It's funny, the way silence changes after you cut the right people out of your life. At first it was unbearable. Too big. Too loud. Like standing in an empty stadium after the crowd's gone home, echoes still bouncing around in the dark. But now it's a warm humming thing. A quiet that wraps around my daughter and me like a second skin. Safe. Whole. Ours. They tried a few last gasps, of course. Because people like that don't believe you're serious until you stay serious. Mom sent a Mother's Day card that year. Blank inside except for a photo she slipped in. Daniel's kids, smiling awkwardly in a dingy apartment somewhere, holding a sign that said, "We miss you." No signature, no explanation, just a cheap shot. One last attempt to weaponize guilt. I dropped it straight into the trash without a second glance. And I didn't even feel bad. Not a twinge, not a crack. Not because I stopped caring about those kids, but because I finally understood I could love them, quietly, from a distance without sacrificing my own daughter, my own sanity, my own hard-won peace. Love doesn't mean setting yourself on fire to keep other people warm. Not anymore. Life settled into a rhythm. Weekdays were work and daycare runs and bath time chaos, and late-night cuddles with sticky, frosting-covered fingers clutching my shirt. Weekends were for parks and library trips and long, lazy mornings watching cartoons in our pajamas. No drama, no landmines, no sick dread in my stomach every time my phone buzzed. I started sleeping through the night again. Real sleep, not the half-dozing panic that comes from waiting for the next guilt trip or emergency demand. I started breathing like a real person. I started laughing without bracing for the fallout. It felt unnatural at first, like wearing someone else's skin. But day by day I grew into it, into myself. And so did she, my daughter, blooming in ways I never even dared hope for. Strong, curious, kind, fearless. Every time she wrapped her tiny arms around my neck and whispered, "I love you, Mommy," a piece of me I thought was dead flickered back to life. Sometimes people ask me if I miss my family. If I ever think about calling, rebuilding, I don't lie, I tell them the truth. Of course I think about it. Of course there are moments, random, stupid moments where the grief swells up without warning, watching a grandmother braid a little girl's hair at the park, seeing a family crowd around a soccer game with handmade signs, smelling cinnamon and cloves in December, and remembering Christmas mornings before everything rotted. There are wounds you don't heal from, not completely. You just learn to walk without limping. You learn to build a life around the empty spaces. You learn that missing someone and letting them back into your life are two very different things. Some losses are necessary. Some goodbyes are acts of self-respect. They still talk about me, I'm sure. Still spin their sad little stories about the ungrateful daughter who abandoned her family for a stranger's child. It doesn't touch me anymore, because here's the thing they never understood. Family isn't who shares your blood. Family is who would bleed for you. My daughter is my family. My friends, the ones who showed up with casseroles and paint rollers and ugly, beautiful secondhand cribs, they're my family. The life I built with my own two hands is my family. And the people who treated me like a tool, like a resource to be drained and discarded, they're just noise now, static in the background of a life that doesn't belong to them anymore. I got a call last month from a number I didn't recognize. For a second, just one split second, my stomach clenched the old reflex to brace for impact. But then I looked at the screen, and I smiled. Blocked, deleted, forgotten. It's not revenge, not really, it's reclamation of my peace, of my dignity, of the tiny, stubborn flame inside me that refused to die, no matter how many times they tried to snuff it out. Some nights, when the world goes quiet and my daughter is curled up, safe and dreaming beside me, I sit by the window with a cup of tea and let it all wash over me. The grief, the anger, the brutal, radiant freedom. They said I was heartless. Maybe I am. Or maybe, for the first time in my life, I finally put my heart first. And God, it was about damn time. Story 2. Quietly on my desk was the invitation to the yearly reunion of the Thompson family. The large glass of my penthouse windows allowed in morning sunshine, which caused the gold-embossed lettering to gleam against the ivory paper. I believed that 14 years of secrecy were unbreakable, and it was going to fall apart immediately. Not because I wanted to, but because one headline had smudged the mask I'd put so much effort into keeping on. I grabbed my phone and clicked on the email that had revealed everything. Women to watch on Forbes. Olivia Thompson, the rising star of AI and digital art, helped her business reach a valuation of $2.00070 million. 2 days before the reunion, on Monday morning, the piece would go up, and with every word, the quirky artist's sister's shell would melt away. Then your brother calls one again. My assistant, Amanda, remarked over the intercom. I sighed, I know. Daniel would call, of course. Since the piece broke to the major outlets, he had been phoning constantly. Still reclined in my chair, my gaze fixed on the skyline of Chicago, I pressed the accept button. What on earth is going on, Olivia? Daniel skipped the politeness and snapped. I was just asked by Bloomberg what it's like to have a sister who is a millionaire, but I was unaware of her existence. Would you mind explaining? I suppressed a grin. On Monday, you'll find out. Similar to everyone else. Do you mean me? He was almost yelling. Your parents worry about you every day. Everyone believes you are impoverished, making ends meet while borrowing money. They believed you had missed your opportunity, made all the incorrect decisions. Concerned, I chuckled quietly. You refer to the critique as sarcasm, the talks about squandering my future anxiety. They just have your best interests in mind, you know. Daniel, no. They wish for me to resemble you. Obtain an MBA, work for your father's business. Lead a manageable, safe existence. Across the line, there was silence. The golden boy, Daniel, the successor, the living personification of expectations. At last he inquired in a low voice, "For what duration have you been concealing this?" I saw my private aircraft touch down on the building across the street as I stood and made my way to the window. Do you recall when I moved into that dilapidated West Side studio? When did you begin creating digital art? Yes, it was 14 years ago. That's right. Everyone believed that I was squandering my Stanford economics degree in pursuit of fantasies. However, nobody was aware that I had already sold my first collection, made $30,000. What? Daniel suffocated. I made $120,000 6 months later, when I sold a number of AI-generated pieces. In the next year, $900,000. And I recently reached my first million while Dad was telling the family over Christmas dinner that I was obstinately unemployed. Despite Daniel's silence, I could practically hear his mind working. However, you continued to collect rent from Mom and Dad. For over 10 years, you drove the dilapidated Civic. I didn't accept payment. I made an investment proposition to them. They said no. I made the decision to live that way. I didn't have to. The easiest method to keep the family at bay was to be quiet. A helicopter. Daniel's voice broke. I have 3, and my business is worth about $2.7 billion right now. However, it's closer to $3.50 when the support platforms are taken into account. Daniel took a deep breath as if he was having trouble breathing. I reached to stop the phone and said, "Now, if you'll pardon me, I need to get ready for an executive board meeting. Brother, I'll see you at the reunion." Before he could respond, I hung up and hit the intercom button once more. "Is everything prepared for the reunion, Amanda?" "Indeed, Miss Thompson. The aircraft is prepared. As requested, a Bentley will be used for transportation. As a private venue, the resort has been reserved. Every guest has a printed copy of every document." Fantastic. I took up the invitation and took another look at it. They had viewed me as a burden and a dreamer, but this time, I would be the one narrating the tale and ensuring they would never forget it. I can still clearly recall that 23-year-old cold night. Outside my parents' old Vermont cottage, the entire family sat around the dinner table. Although there was a lot of snow falling, the temperature indoors was lower than the outdoors. With his wine glass in hand and a serious attitude as if he were at a board meeting rather than a family meal, Dad sat at the head of the table. "Olivia," his voice was forceful and low, "you need to take your future seriously now. Come work for the corporation and quit that computer art foolishness." I still had on a paint-stained sweatshirt that had just come from the studio. "I mean it, Father. I just completed a project for a Seattle-based software company. They compensated me only for using the image-generating algorithm I created." As if what I had to say were useless gibberish, he held out his hand to interrupt. "Real money is never paid for computer-generated images. It's a trend. A fantasy cannot last a lifetime." Mom sat next to him, sympathy shining in her eyes. She gave me a soft shoulder touch as though to comfort me. "Sweetheart, your father only has your best interests in mind. You hold a degree in economics with honors. For it, many would murder. For something so unknown, why squander it?" I looked at my 29-year-old sister Madison, the family's rising star, who had just been promoted to deputy CFO at a large company. At the meal, she showed off her new Hermes purse. Madison grinned. "Her wine is being watched. All you're afraid of is the actual world. I feel like I'm giving to a charity each time I send you money to pay your electricity bill." Everyone at the table chuckled. Like a horrible soundtrack I never wanted to hear again, their laughing echoed in my ears. I excused myself early that evening and walked upstairs to the old bedroom, which still had my high school trophies pasted on the walls and a fading floral carpeting. I silently gazed over the lines of code I had typed the previous day when I opened my laptop. No one in my family was aware that only 2 weeks prior, a European company had paid me more than $40 to utilize my picture production program in their advertising campaign, while I watched the art change with the algorithm. I kept it to myself. Nothing. My dismissal wasn't the first time. I begged my father for $150,000 when I was 26 years old so that I could start an AI-powered art-on-demand website. I had a list of possible customers, a functioning prototype, and a thorough business strategy. After 5 minutes of skimming, he folded it up and put it down. "We don't invest in illusions in our company. Return when you're ready to launch an accounting company or coffee shop." Madison simply gave a headshake. "I can always hire you. I'll provide you a consistent paycheck. Don't dream any longer." I declined both of them. I started an adventure when I relocated to Austin that same year. My family didn't really think it was real. They referred to me as the artistic misfit, the childish artist, and occasionally the withdrawn letdown of the Thompson household. It was the same at every reunion. They discussed concrete victories, investment funds, real estate, and interest rates. "So what are you doing now?" I inquired periodically as I sat at the end of the table. Then courteous nods and a brief shift in topic followed. "Madison got up at dinner last year, took out a huge package, and gave it to me in front of everyone. Please accept this. I know you detest asking for loans. Consider it a present from your accomplished younger sister." I thanked her, put the envelope in my handbag, and grinned. I left it on the table unopened after the dinner and departed. The black card of my own business, which handles transactions totaling close to $100 million each month, was in my wallet at the time. I wasn't prepared for them to know, and they didn't know either. Every patronizing phrase, each sneer, I recalled everything, every time they handed me money, in the belief that they were being philanthropic. Not to exact retribution, but to create something so strong that they would never be able to accept that they previously considered me a failure. And that day is drawing near. At the beginning of my 27th year, I moved into a rundown loft in East Austin. It was just 400 square feet, with a shoebox-sized bathroom and no central heating. I bathed under a little, leaking nozzle every morning and made coffee by boiling water in an electric kettle. But I felt more alive than ever before. I had recently finished a $75,000 contract with a Swedish game firm to supply algorithms that created animated backdrops depending on user moods. But no one in my family knew that when I was eating instant noodles and wearing old sweaters. I still didn't want Olivia Thompson's name to appear on any headline, so a third-party business coded the project under a pseudonym. The digital art collection, Echoes of Light, a personal initiative that combined machine learning and visual memory data from thousands of survey respondents, was my first significant achievement. I used a secret exchange to sell the complete collection as unique digital assets. $48,000 was the final cost. I sobbed when I saw that figure appear on my account for the first time. It was the first time the world had acknowledged my goal, not because of the money. My second collection, Synthetic Reverie, came out 6 months later. This time, I worked with a music producer to make each composition a coordinated combination of sound and visuals. Over $220,000 was raised when a painting that could hum the whole collection sold out in less than 12 hours. I didn't improve my standard of living with that money. I employed a group of software developers to create my own platform using it. Lumina Frame is a digital platform that allows artists to employ artificial intelligence AI to produce works that reflect their individual styles and feelings. All artwork may be tokenized, exchanged, or shown in custom-designed virtual galleries, and each user would be given their own unique algorithm. I took my time promoting the platform. Before I went public, I wanted it to be flawless. Over the following 2 years, I led a normal life, even one that was below average. I continued to drive the 2008 Civic that I had spent $1,200 in. Leaning to the left is the passenger seat. The driver's side window was stuck, and the radio only picked up 2 stations. However, Madison always mentioned that she had recently upgraded to the newest Tesla Model S, so I continued to drive it to every family get-together. I continued to accept my mother's sad embraces, my father's empathetic looks, and my relatives' kind offerings. If you require lodging, out back we have a guest home. Do you want me to direct you to HR? At my business, a communications assistant is being hired. I thanked them, grinned, and continued to act like the idealistic elder sister who hadn't fully matured. In the meantime, I had set up a business in Delaware to manage finances under a different name. To ensure untraceability, each transaction was divided and sent across 3 separate platforms. The Singaporean venture capital firm that funded the Lumina Frame project was unaware that I was the driving force behind it. They just knew me as L. Vance, the inventor of an AI technology that is currently being utilized by large Asian animation companies. In a Series B fundraising round, the platform was valued at $780 million B the time I reached 31. However, I kept that information from my family members. I just got a nicer espresso machine and replaced the old curtains in my flat, which was still the same. The explanation was straightforward. I wasn't prepared. When my father told me I was lucky, I wasn't prepared. I didn't want Madison to perceive me as a danger. She preferred to assist rather than her eccentric artist sister. Furthermore, I wasn't prepared to hear my mother express concern that I was withdrawing too much. When the truth came out, I wanted it to be indisputable. No justifications. No excuses. No acting as though I never informed them or that they were unaware. I wanted it to be so genuine and enormous that no one could take it away or distort it. I desired for them to observe. And it was closer than ever to the day when the whole Thompson family would have to confront my true self. The item was prominently displayed on Forbes' site as the sun rose. Olivia Thompson and the quiet rise of a $3,200,000,000 empire was the big headline. The image I selected featured me standing with Peace, the platform's top seller, in the Lumina Frame main gallery, costing $4,500,000. Behind me, my phone started buzzing constantly after 10 minutes. Communications, calls and emails, fulfilling demands, invitations to interviews and offers of partnerships. A flood that never seems to stop. I sipped my espresso while watching the mayhem play out on the 3 monitors on my desk with a composed stare. After 5 years of being muted, the family group chat had burst. Madison, is this genuine, Olivia? Holy shot. Daniel, this paper is a complete waste. There must be some error. Mom, Olivia, I must speak with you. Give me a call now. We must speak alone, Dad. I didn't answer any calls before the reunion, so I placed the phone down. The time had come. They experienced what it was like to be abandoned. As if they had abandoned me, I reclined in my chair and gazed through the glass at the skyline of Chicago. Dancing over the chilly steel buildings is the morning light. Every structure served as a reminder. I had made the correct decision. The doorbell rang, abrasive and demanding. Amanda appeared a little agitated as she entered the office. A woman below is posing as your mother, Miss Thompson. She is unwilling to go. I nodded and let out a sigh. Lift her up. After 10 minutes, my mother and Thompson entered the private elevator as it opened. Her beige Chanel suit was still immaculate and wrinkle-free, and her hair was still done well. But I almost didn't recognize the lady who used to be calm under pressure because of the fear and bewilderment in her eyes. The digital artwork on the far wall caught her attention as she glanced over the penthouse, the black flooring, and the floor-to-ceiling windows that framed the cityscape. One of my works, now worth more than $500,000, she stuttered. Olivia. What? What is this? Is this where you call home? I went to pour her a cup of tea at the table. I own it. I own 3 of them in Chicago. Although I almost ever use them, I have 2 more in Vancouver and Manhattan. With her eyes focused on mine, she sank onto the Italian leather chair across from me. You? For all these years, what have you been up to? I assumed you were selling a few paintings to make ends meet. I believed I understood your thoughts. Calm yet razor sharp, I sliced into my voice. While Madison was moving up the financial ladder and Daniel was flipping houses, I know that everyone assumed I was the failed elder sister, wandering about with a laptop and a pipe dream. I served as a warning to the family. Mom cast her gaze downward. I silently drew out a folder from a drawer and set it down in front of her. I presented my dad with this investment suggestion 6 years ago. I requested that he contribute $200,000 to the development of Lumina Frame. No, he responded, called me a needless danger. The current value of such investment would be almost $94 million. She turned the pages with trembling hands. Everything is clearly spelled out, including growth charts, finance agreements, and strategic client lists. She let out a gasp. Your dad? You are only requesting money, he replied. Why did you conceal everything? How come you didn't tell me? Nobody ever truly wanted to listen, so for once I looked her in the eye. You keep changing the topic whenever I bring up the project. Each time I said I was engrossed in a daydream, according to Dad. Like she was doing me a favor, Madison gave me money. Daniel gave me a job offer as a junior accountant. As if he were saving me from disaster. The room was so quiet that it pushed against the walls. With tear-streaked eyes, my mother raised her head. You're correct. I didn't pay attention. When I looked, I saw nothing. I gave a soft nod. However, things have changed since then. All of them will be seen by the family. From the adjoining hangar, I could see my private plane as I went out onto the balcony. Glistening in the sunshine, my name was emblazoned in dazzling gold over its surface. Less than 48 hours remained until the reunion, and I would not be seated at the end of the table in silence this time. Even if I were the one entering, nobody could turn away. The morning of the reunification of the Thompson family. As though the cosmos itself were preparing for a reckoning that no one would ever forget, the sky was a perfect blue. Just weeks after finalizing my first billion-dollar sale, I stood on the main deck of the 3-story yacht Vieira, which was tied off Montclair Island, the private island I had bought about a year prior. 4 helicopters landed at the landing strip in the distance, one after the other, and O was given a huge greeting. The white stone of Thompson Retreat gleamed in the tropical sunlight. Massive lead panels on each side of each pad played a loop of digital pieces I had made, such as Synthetic Reverie, The Memory Orchard, and Code of Solace, the same pieces my father waved away when I suggested we collaborate on an investment. Wading up the marble walk that led to the central villa property, I tightened the collar of my white silk shirt while keeping my gaze on the line of Rolls-Royce Phantoms. According to the itinerary, each automobile had been specifically designated to drive family members from the airport to the waterfront and then aboard the boat or helicopter. My father, Richard Thompson, emerged when the door opened after the first helicopter touched down. His eyes flickered slightly alongside him, yet he was still as stately as ever. Anne, my mother, had a taut face, as though she was forcing herself to think that none of this was possible. Wearing designer labels from head to toe, Madison and her husband Carter were transported in the second helicopter. Madison took a step back, looked around her face, and tensed up when her eyes found the sign with my name on it. It never occurred to her that the reunion she had proposed would take place at a resort in Scottsdale would now take place on an island owned by the sister she used to refer to as a family duty. I got off the deck of the yacht. I have my hands in my pockets. Though subtle, my smiles are as sharp as a blade. "Hello, everybody," I said. I could easily hear my voice in the wide air. "I hope you had a comfortable journey," trying to maintain a level voice. My father was the first to speak. "Olivia, everything. Was all of this really required?" With my lips curling, I cocked my head. "It depends on your definition of required, father. I thought it was time for a change of pace after 10 years of reunions in unmemorable hotels." "Different?" Madison repeated, eyes wide as she peered at the glass-covered villas set between rows of palms. "You own an island?" "Technically, it's a complex, but sure, the island is center." I grinned. "Everyone ready for the reunion?" No one answered. I made a motion, and the fleet of phantoms shot ahead at once, transporting each group to their individual villas in accordance with a plan I had personally created. The name of each passenger was displayed on a shining acrylic plaque in each room. There was also a personalized welcome packet inside. I went with the flow. Dappled shadows are created on the stone by sunlight, filtered through the leaves. We arrived at the main hall. Standing in a line, uniformed employees held cold fruit mocktails that were appropriate for all age groups and adapted to health regulations. At 7 o'clock, dinner will be served. I looked at the family. You are free to relax or check out the East Wing display in the meanwhile. If you look closely, you can see that each section contains a tiny LED display that shows the current value of each piece of art in real time. It also features a few new works that I have never exhibited previously. My dad narrowed his eyes like a museum exhibit. Blockchain, networked, and by invitation only not exactly like a museum. Madison turned to face Carter and said something I couldn't hear, but I could see the mix of amazement, mistrust, and envy on her face. A part of her was trying to figure out how the crazy elder sister she used to feel sorry for had created an entire kingdom right in front of them. For an instant, I remained motionless as I saw them dispersing across the retreat. They all had confused expressions, overcome by the opulence all around them. And when they gathered around the huge dining table under the crystal dome tonight, I was just getting started. I would provide them with more than just art and data. This time, I wouldn't be sitting inconspicuously at the far end of the table or chatting gently. Instead, I would show them exactly what they had been missing over the previous decade. They would have to confront the reality, and I would be in the middle. At one point, they were too preoccupied with pitying me to see that I had established an empire. The large table, covered in white silk, was bathed in warm golden light, inside a hall with glass panels that looks out into the starry night sky. An ivory envelope and a name card were placed on each seat. Like small stars, the light was captured by crystal glasses. Dressed in sleek black and white, The personnel waited calmly on each side, waiting for orders. Still shaky on their feet, the Thompsons stumbled in. Nobody said anything. I knew they were still in shock since each had already examined the envelope that had been put in their individual suite earlier. I had planned something special for each envelope. Madison was shown a graphic that contrasted my daily passive income from investments with her highly praised six-figure salary. Daniel received a report describing how his real estate company had previously turned down a partnership offer from Lumina, framed from 4 years ago, and how that agreement would now treble their yearly income if it were approved. A portfolio with the heading, "The Missed Investment $200,000 Stowe $96 million" in italics, was presented to my father, Richard. After everyone had seated themselves, I stood up. Slowly, my gaze swept across each face, tense, unsure, and wary. Some did not look at each other. Madison fussed about her serviette. In an attempt to look calm, my mother sat up straighter than normal. "I appreciate everyone's presence tonight. Before supper, I started, in a quiet but forceful voice, I want to share something with you." I hit a button on a little remote control that was tucked away in my pocket. A title appeared as the lights faded the glass wall behind the table and changed into a transparent screen. Opportunities Lost in the Forgotten Journey. In the first picture, I was 24 years old, sitting in a small apartment with an outdated laptop resting on my lap. The Kid Who Never Grew Up is a 2013 text read. $48,000 was sold in the first collection. I moved gently across the table while keeping my eyes on the television. The next slide shows me giving the 2016 Lumina frame pitch while positioned at a whiteboard. Here's a quote from my dad. "Do you believe that consumers will pay for computer-generated images? It's not art. It's an illusion." The growth chart followed. Each milestone was accompanied by a well-known comment. Madison, 2018. "Inspiration and quick noodles aren't sustainable." Daniel, 2020. "When individuals are investing in real estate, who needs pictures?" 2022. "Why don't you teach art the way you loved painting, Mom? It is more steady." The lights came back on. At the head of the table, I remained still. "Concrete is lighter than the air. What made you conceal it?" With the quiet voice, my father asked. "Why not speak up?" I was staring at him the entire time, nor bitter, nor furious. Just be clear, as nobody was paying attention. I made an effort. Each time I raised my voice, you shifted the topic. I received a smirk every time I made a suggestion. Each time I discussed or digital art, or anything else that didn't fit your idea of success, I was thrown out. I looked over at Madison. "Remember when you told me to simply take the envelope that you pushed at me in front of the entire family? I understand you. Have you ever considered the possibility that I didn't require assistance? Simply show respect." Madison remained silent. Her fingers clenched around her glass as she bent her head. "This isn't to boast," I said, "but to show everyone that success doesn't always look like what you're used to. Silence doesn't necessarily imply failure, and you don't have to follow the road your family has chosen to achieve success." My mother's voice was no more than a whisper when she blinked. "We were mistaken. I was mistaken. I was unaware of your progress." I gave a soft grin. "You don't have to apologize to me. All I need is for you to see me. Can you actually see me? Not the person you wanted me to be." I held out my glass. 100 tiny stars are formed by the refraction of light. I said, "Let's eat now." However, nobody needs to act like someone they're not this time. Being judged doesn't have to make someone shrink. The whole family is seated here, and I'm Olivia Thompson, the top of the table now. After earlier being ignored, there was a long period of silence. Daniel then lifted his glass carefully in Olivia's direction. "And to the most important lesson you just taught us all," he continued. They raised their glasses in the wine's golden light, one by one. For the first time in years, I saw anything. Genuine acknowledgement. Once everyone had gone back to their rooms after supper, I remained behind, seated on a plush leather armchair in the glass atrium. I am holding a cup of herbal tea. Outside, the moonlight stretched like a silver ribbon across the ocean as the sea moved with gentle waves. After a day of reckoning, I sat there for a while, relishing the first moment of peace. I was not labeled delusional. No more pity glances. No more remarks that viewed me as a problem that needed to be resolved. I was not rejected or given an explanation for the first time in a decade. Soft footsteps resounded. It was Richard, my father, who had lost his tie and was still dressed in the white shirt he had worn to dinner. Before he spoke, he sat in the chair opposite from me and silently observed me for a while. None of us ever could have predicted what you did, and I'm proud and embarrassed of that. I didn't answer. To listen, I just cocked my head. I always believed that stability was the aim, and that being creative should be a pastime rather than a job. However, it is now evident who is actually looking in the incorrect place. I put down my tea. Your decision to take the safe route for yourself wasn't incorrect. You were mistaken to believe that it was the only way for everyone. He nodded while his eyes lingered on the wall's code of comfort and calm. Me and your mom. We were terrified since we didn't understand the language you used to communicate, and people deny when they're scared. He took a folded piece of paper out of his pocket and laid it on the table. Though I thought it should come straight from me, I was going to put this in your room. I took it open. There was no mistaking his penmanship. Olivia, I wouldn't force you to pick between your dream and your family if I could go back in time. I lost the opportunity to contribute to a project, but more importantly, I lost the opportunity to accompany you on that trip. I apologize for not listening to you when you needed it most, not simply for questioning you. You're more than just a success. A new planet has been built by you, and I'm honored to be Olivia Thompson's father for the first time. I held the letter in my hands and gently folded it. I almost convinced myself that this moment would never arrive since I had been waiting for it for so long. Oddly enough, though, I didn't feel triumphant or outraged when it happened. I simply felt calm. The following morning, the whole family assembled in the main auditorium to watch me showcase my most recent effort on a plain stage against a black background. Wearing a navy blue jumpsuit, I took a step forward. There was a sense of subdued expectation as the light gently focused. I appreciate everyone sticking. I started. I would want to provide a completely fresh chapter, the next phase in this trip today. I pressed the remote control. The emblem of an Ethereum, a platform for rewriting reality, appeared on the screen behind me. I have spent the last 3 years fostering the Ethereum project. It's more than simply a digital art platform. It's a hybrid environment where safe blockchain, augmented reality, and customized AI meet. A location where anybody may design, own, and reside in their own creative space. A universe unconstrained by a screen, stage, or painting. A little child creating a virtual library of her grandparents' memories, and an architect creating a real-time, interactive model of his ideas within a mixed reality setting were among the sample clips I showed. With a valuation of more than $10 billion, this enterprise has concluded its Series C investment round. You are the first to see its full potential today. There was no sound in the room. Daniel was the first to speak. Olivia, if it's okay with you, I'd want to switch some of my personal investments to Ethereum. This is actually valuable, not because you're my sister. Madison stood up slowly. Although I may not fully comprehend all the technical jargon, I am aware of when something is revolutionary and will do my best to promote it. I grinned. I didn't require their atonement. They only needed to verify those statements to me. There was more to them than a check. I went back to the little villa on the island's west side by myself that night. Through the open drapes, a gentle sea air floated. I put a framed copy of my very first NFT sale next to my father's letter. I placed a new frame with the Forbes headline, my picture standing in front of the Lumina frame, and a little line underneath it on the nightstand, which cost $48,000. This was not done to disprove anyone. I took this action in order to uphold my moral convictions. I woke up before dawn the following morning. The wooden floor was covered in golden spots as the soft light from the sea streamed through the large glass windows. The waves outside spoke like the steady breath of a world I had created. It comes from hours of labor, lines of code, and innumerable invisible failures, not from fiction. With a steaming cup of coffee in front of me, I put on a light robe and went out onto the patio. The island was beginning to awaken. The aroma of toast filled the air as staff prepared breakfast outside. Below, tables were arranged neatly, with palms swaying in the background. I observed Daniel sitting by himself at a stone table, his iPad eyes fixed intently as though he were studying something profoundly, and Madison strolling with Mom. To me, the real sense of achievement was when everything was at ease, nor the cheers, nor the long overdue compliments. Not even the startling statistics, but the liberty to live according to your convictions without needing to defend them or seek approval from others. I reflected on the journey I had taken at the beginning, living in a small apartment with just an outdated laptop, adjusting pixel location and coding to fit mood during the restless nights. The times I declined assistance that everyone said I was stupid for declining. When they dubbed me a failure, I had said nothing, but I continued to create during that quiet. I did not establish this empire to exact retribution or to establish a point. It was something I had to make, because I would lose myself if I didn't do it. We all have dreams that the outside world might not comprehend, but from the beginning, nobody owes the world comprehension. In actuality, great achievements frequently start off alone. Nobody is standing by your side when no one is encouraging you, and all the doors appear to be closed. And at that very time, if you have the courage to believe in the invisible, if you silently continue to put brick after brick, the world will eventually be forced to see. The breakfast proceeded in a calm setting. People's gaze changed and they started chatting to me. No longer dismissive or guarded. This time, and for the first time, it was true curiosity. Show respect. Daniel wanted to know how Ethereum works. Madison mentioned possible cooperation with the marketing department of her business. Even my hitherto reticent father extended an invitation to attend an international banking meeting next month, where he would serve as the main speaker. I took my time accepting. I nodded, grinned, and just replied, "I'll give it some thought," because I had the freedom to choose for the first time. Rather than hoping to be selected after breakfast, I went to inspect the west part of the island with Amanda, my assistant, and the recently hired CEO of Lumina Frame, where I intended to construct the first digital arts center that combined extended reality technology with physical space. Amanda gave me a tablet that displayed how many new people had joined since the project's debut yesterday. Almost 1 million in less than a day. The fact that I knew this wasn't the pinnacle made me happy, not the number. I would go on, and it was only the start of a whole new story, no more hiding. I went back to the auditorium by myself that evening, where I had previously shown the chronology of my achievements. I stood in the empty room and played back an old webcam recording of myself at the age of 23, my eyes flaming with conviction, showing it to no one. After letting it finish, I turned to face my younger self on the screen. All that girl had was faith. No wealth, no celebrity, nobody had faith in her. But she persisted. I grinned. "Olivia, you succeeded," I muttered. "And this is only the first chapter." I walked out into the pitch-black night sky, which was dotted with 1,000,000 brilliant stars. There was an island under my feet, the representation of a dream, once made fun of. The future lay before me. Without a well-traveled route, I would only carve one personally. Because proving people incorrect isn't the goal of true accomplishment. It's about living your life according to your convictions. Because I followed a road that no one believed in, I was once ridiculed and excluded from all discussions about accomplishment until the very end. But I created an empire in that quiet. I also no longer require late recognition or applause. I simply need to know that I never gave up and that I had faith in myself. Fanfare does not lead to success. It results from remaining loyal, even if the world ignores you. How do you feel about Olivia's path and her decision to confront her family? Please leave a comment below with your ideas, and remember to follow the channel for more. Encourage family tales like this one.